Hello and welcome to our orchard. Now, as you can see, in early spring the grass wasn't too high, but now it's June and the grass has gone a bit crazy, to be honest. So the important thing is when you have an orchard is to make sure that the stems and the trunks of your trees have breathing space, because if not, and if the grass is growing up against a stem, this can cause diseases and you really do not want that. So yesterday I was hoping to go out to begin scything the orchard. However, unfortunately, the rain decided to continuously pour down all day. However, today it's looking okay up until about lunchtime, so I'm going to get started. So I did a scything video last year explaining why we scythe, and that has suddenly started picking up some pace, over 70,000 views. So if you want to see why we scythe, then click on that link. Now, the reason why I personally want to cut the orchard using a scythe rather than a strimmer or a lawnmower, and we do still use our strimmer and lawnmower for quite tricky places, but I like the idea of using a scythe wherever possible, because it's both really good for your health and well-being, but it's also really satisfying hearing the scythe blade cut the grass. So to help me scythe the orchard, I've got my chosen blade here. This is a 65cm ditch blade. Now, I've also got a 75cm meadow blade. I've got the 65cm ditch blade, and then I've got a smaller ditch blade. So the idea with the meadow blade is when it opens up a bit in the orchard, I'll be using that. But this will be probably the main choice, because it's a bit tougher. And it means that because some of the grass here in the orchard has like fallen over itself and is matted, this will be better suited for that. And then I'll use a smaller scythe for around our soft fruit bushes, which we've started to plant in a parameter around our orchard. So let's just get started. So for raking, I'm just using a general hay rake. This is made by Bulldog, out of wood, and it works really effectively. It's a lovely evening, and this is actually the second day's worth of cutting. I've got about an hour or so before the light levels completely disappear. So if you're scything a new row and there's long grass on the other side, use a bit of a different cut, where what you do is you pull it behind you. So what happens here is that it creates, you still have the cut grass, but it creates a nice pile in the grass that you've already cut. So then you can come down this way and cut the grass and pile it into the grass that's already been cut. So if you see here, I'm pulling it behind me like that. So that's getting it out the way. So I'm just over exaggerating a bit, but I'm just pulling it out of the way so it creates a nice pathway then for me to put other cut grass into it. And then you can do exactly the same technique if you're starting in the middle of a meadow. Another great thing about scything is that if you have a lawnmower, it won't be able to cut with grass this long. And the other thing, if you're using a trimmer or a strimmer around the stems of an apple tree, it's quite easy to actually hit the trunk or the stem. But I'll show you right now as an overlay, just showing you that you can literally work around an apple tree with a scythe, being able to take out all the stuff and the grass that's growing around the stem without being able to damage it, because you have that full control. And with a strimmer you can accidentally push against it and that can then damage the bark, and that can be fatal especially if it's a young fruit tree. But if you slip and push against the trunk with a scythe, it's not going to have any damage because the blade is hidden on the inside. So this is just to demonstrate what I'm on about with overemphasizing the final part of the stroke. And what that is that here we've got the cut grass, but here we've got a nice line of the grass where we have cut. Now, if you hadn't cut the grass and this has been pushed over onto grass that you haven't cut, then that can make it a bit messy. So now all I need to do is, when I'm cutting here, is I'm moving this grass directly onto grass that's already been cut. So in that way, it means that I won't actually miss out any areas by accident. So the light's dropping quite quickly now, and I'm actually quite close to reaching the other side of our orchard. However, this is the trickiest half. The top half, the grass is quite nice. However, here the grass is a lot more matted, and we found exactly the same last year. And the thing about with the scything, when the grass is quite matted and there are actually a few mounds, like a few molehills and stuff, is that it isn't as glamorous. But the great thing about the scythe is that you can basically see what's in front of you, and you can quickly adjust basically what you're doing. And another good thing is that, say if, for example, the grass is leaning down and you've missed a patch, then all you need to do with the bottom of the scythe is to literally just push it against, and then it'll make the grass stand up again, and then you can cut it then once you've done that. So it's a little bit slower, and it isn't quite as glamorous. However, it's still doing quite a good job, and especially if you have some open sections like here, then you can actually do it quite quickly. But still, it's definitely worth scything, especially if the grass is a bit tricky. But definitely make sure that if you are doing not quite, perfect meadow grass, to use a ditch blade, because it's got this thing at the front of the blade which basically, if it hits any stones or rocks, it will bounce them out of the way, so there's less chance of the blades getting damaged. So for example, here the grass is at different levels and this has fallen down, so I literally poke it back up like that, and then I can take it off. So it's as simple as that. Now, scything is actually a lot more effective to do when the grass is wet. So if it's raining, then it's a perfect excuse to get outside and scythe if there's no other jobs to do around your, say, your small holding or on your garden. Another thing about scything is basically you want to aim to scythe in the morning and also in the evening, because that's when the moisture levels drop, and that's when the flies come out. But basically having wet grass, it's almost like a lubricant to the blades, and you will find if you have a scythe and you test it, if you test it on dry grass, it doesn't actually cut very well. But if you test it on wet grass, say when there's dew in the morning, then you'll notice it's a lot better and it's a lot more satisfying, and the cut will be a better quality. So I'm going to call it a night, but we'll come back a bit later on, probably tomorrow or the day after, to do another batch of scything. And the plan is to also turn some of this grass into hay. An important thing to remember is that once you come back from scything is to give your blade a good wash, because you want to get rid of all of those grass juices which could be corrosive to the blade, because you want to look after it. And then once you've given it a wash, then simply and carefully wipe it down with an old towel or old piece of clothing just to dry it off to stop any rust, and then make sure you put it away in a nice dry place. So we finished scything the orchard about a month ago, and as you can see there's this really nice carpet of fresh grass that has grown through. I remember in the Why We Scythe video there were a few people questioning about cutting so short because the ground looked dead, the grass looked dead. The reason why is because the grass is so thick up here that there was no need for chlorophyll for photosynthesis, so therefore it wasn't as green. But as you can see, and within 2 weeks it was all green anyway, and the grass has really grown, and you can really actually experience how quickly the grass grows here. But it's great. it's not only benefited the trees by giving breathing space around the stems, but it also has made way for other plants, for example sorrel. And sorrel is this free plant which is great for salads. It's a very lemony flavour. I really like to eat it whenever possible, so that's growing through. I also think maybe later on in the season we might do another cut of the orchard to make some hay later on in the year, possibly around September time, and also to feed the pigs. So I hope this has inspired you and showed you a bit more about the capabilities of using a scythe, and I recommend, if you want to find out more, to check out the courses offered by Scythe Cymru. And if you have anything you want to add or any comments or questions, then don't hesitate to ask down below in the comment section. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.